Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Vedic Astrology Podcast. It is time once again to consider the movement of the sun through the zodiac, because today, as I'm recording, the sun has entered Libra. And so this is our episode on the solar transit, Solar Libra, in 2024. There's actually quite a bit going on this month, so there's plenty for us to talk about. And that's why I am overjoyed to be joined by my colleague, fellow life coach and Vedic astrologer, Gabby Rivera. Welcome, Gabby. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you, Fiona. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And it was such a turn of events that Gabby is available today, because recently she has produced a Libra seasonal workbook, and I was lucky enough to have a look at it. And it was so in alignment with what I've been working through with this podcast this year, of experiencing the energy of each zodiac sign by following the sun's transit. And when Gabby's workbook arrived, I knew it was perfect timing. So Gabby, tell us a little bit about the Libra seasonal workbook. How did this workbook come about?
It came about through self-reflection. I was following the transit of the moons, noticing different shifts in my emotions and things that were coming up that felt very resonant with the themes, and then started to get more interested in the sun's movement, because in the beginning of the Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship Program, I remember Ryan talking about how the transit of the sun activates different chakras within our body, and different energy centers are activated. And when I started to pay attention to those subtle energy shifts, I felt them shift within me as well. I've been noticing my energy shift from season to season. And even coming out of this 12th house season, I took a long break from everything. And then it was interesting that this whole workbook, something that I had in my head and I didn't know how to put into physical form, it came out when the sun was in Virgo, which is the throat chakra, and activated that kind of creativity of getting something out into the world. So yeah, it was interesting and fascinating. I learned so much through the process too, of connecting with Libra a little bit more as well.
For those of us who've done the Asheville Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship Program, what Gabby's referring to is in the very first semester. And it's quite powerful. It's about Rasis and signs, and it's such a foundational semester. And I know that many people have taken it and many listeners have taken it, and it's something that keeps giving and giving, isn't it? The simple foundational things, as you contemplate them, you go deeper and deeper into them. So I'm also inspired by what you're saying, what Ryan was saying, that it's almost like we have an ecliptic inside our spine, with the chakra points being mini stations along this ecliptic, and where the sun is transiting is a nice way to perhaps get in touch with that chakra or that part of the body. And that's where the masculine and the feminine and the polarities of each of these zodiac signs, it helps us map it quite clearly on to the body. I'm inspired to hear that you've also continued thinking about that and turned it into this workbook. So as we go through today, we'll dive into that as a touchstone to help us ground into the energy of the sign of Libra. But before we dive too deeply into that, let's touch on the transits that are going to take place this solar month. And this is special because it is an equinox, isn't it? When the sun crosses from Virgo into Libra, is that point on the ecliptic where, if you live in the northern hemisphere like I am right now, we notice that the sun now is dipped below the horizon and is going to spend a little bit more time below our horizon during the next 6 months. And we're going to experience winter, or that cooler, darker period. Of course, if you're living in the southern hemisphere, then you're in that lucky spring time of year where this equinox is actually marking the point where the sun is coming above the horizon, and day by day, there's going to be a little bit more sunlight until you get to the solstice at Christmas, that warm, hot, sunny Christmas that we have in the southern hemisphere. So that is the beginning. The very first transit that kicks off our solar Libra is that on the 22nd of September, the sun crossed into Libra. And then on the 23rd, Venus, that was also there in Libra, has moved then out into Scorpio. So that very first day, there's a lot going on. Sun comes in. K2 is already there in Libra. Venus was there, but exits on the 23rd. And then on the 26th of September, Mercury is joining the Sun here in Libra. So those will be our planets. Sun, Mercury, and K2 are spending the most time in Libra this month. And then on the 2nd of October, there is a new moon in Libra, and it's going to be a solar eclipse as well, because as we said, K2 is here in Libra, the Sun's in Libra, and now the moon has joined as well. So that's on the 2nd of October. And then on the 13th of October, Mercury is going to exit out of Libra into Scorpio. On the 17th of October, we have the full moon in Aries. And also on the 17th of October, Venus is moving into Sagittarius. And then on the 22nd of October, the Sun is moving out into Scorpio. So that kind of tells us a little bit about the planetary movements that are happening during solar Libra. And just to notice some other things that are staying the same, or planetary placements that are staying the same. We have Saturn in Pisces. We have Rahu is obviously opposite in Aries, and Jupiter is in Gemini, and Mars is debilitated in Cancer. So I think there's a few things to keep in mind about the other planets that are on board. One of them is that if you look at the chart South Indian, which is how I see it in my mind, we've got Saturn in Pisces, Neptune's in Pisces, Uranus is in Taurus, and Jupiter's over there in Gemini. All of those planets are retrograde because they're opposite the Sun. If you see it in your mind that way, Libra, Sun down the bottom there, and those 4 outer planets are on the other side. So they're all retrograde, I think, this month. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that Libra is where the Sun is debilitated, which we might talk about that in a minute, Gabby. So the Sun is debilitated in Libra, but also the planet that exalts the Sun, so Mars, is also debilitated in Cancer. So I think that for me, there seems to be something significant about that the Ucha of the Sun is low and the Ucha of Mars is low. They both share a kind of fire energy and a sort of confidence to take action, these two planets, and both of them are maybe at that low ebb of that inner reservoir of inspiration and courage. So I think that's a sort of setting in the background of what's going on for the month. And is there anything particularly in those transits that catches your attention, Gabby? Anything that you've been thinking about?
I've been thinking about the Sun moving through Libra and how it is in detriment there. It's in its fall. It doesn't have that leadership capability, that courage, that vitality, because it's not able to express how it wants to express. It's thinking about others maybe more than, or having that push and pull. So I've been contemplating what that might feel for each sign, because it's a tougher placement for the Sun to be. So that will show up, be interesting and be challenging for all of us to create more balance during Libra season. And that's probably why it's so important for Libra to have that balance, is because when the Sun is there, it's creating this push and pull dynamic that internally can maybe cause us to feel a bit uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah. It's not a very natural combination, is it? Venus and the Sun are fascinating, but I think I already did a podcast episode about that. I feel they've got so much in common, but they'd approach things in entirely the opposite direction and way to each other. But I think this is a nice segue into talking about the workbook. So let's share a little bit about the qualities of the sign of Libra, because right off the bat, both Aries and Libra, so Aries where the Sun's exalted and Libra where it's debilitated, again, they share some similarities. They're both masculine signs, right? And they're both cardinal signs. So they've got a kind of action orientation to them. But what are some other qualities of Libra that we can keep in mind to get in touch with the energy of Libra season?
Yeah. Libra is that cardinal air sign, but different from Aries, it's going to be more thinking about others. It's about energy exchanges and that process of giving something away to get something in return. So it's a lot about transformation and letting go of something to receive something else. Libra has to do a lot with trade and commerce. So it's in those interactions with other people. And how do we find balance, where Aries is a very active sign and has a lot of energy, but it's mostly thinking about oneself. How can I do this? How can I get here? How can I do that? Where Libra is that action oriented sign and very dynamic, but constantly thinking about how can I find equanimity here? How can I find balance here? What can I do to find more peace in these relationships with others? So in that way, it would be a little bit different.
And Libra is always thinking about the consequences, isn't it? And the costs. And what is the value of this? Am I willing to let go of this, as you said, in order to get something else? So it has such a sense of consequences and what's the price, what's the cost, in a way that Aries doesn't. Aries is, let's do it anyway. And it'll figure it out. There's no need to think about the next step. Let's do the first step. So it's a big contrast.
Yeah.
There.
That reminds me of the symbol of Libra, which is those balancing scales. And so it's constantly, you were saying, is weighing the worth and weighing the value of, does this feel equal or balanced, or is it leaning one way or the other way? And what do I need to take off or put back on the other side to equal it out?
And we're probably lucky that the sun didn't do that calculation. When the sun started the solar system, it didn't do the calculation of how long is this going to take and is it worth it or whatever. It was that inspiration to have the gravitational pull or whatever to create enough pressure for these hydrogen explosions to be occurring. And the consequences will fall where they may. So one can admire the sun in that, having the courage to begin, the inspiration to begin. But then that becomes challenging here in Libra because every step has its own consequences and its own value judgments. And before you know it, you're second guessing what your original inspiration was.
And Libra is also an air sign. So there is a lot of that tendency to overthink things, especially in these dynamics when we want to be a leader and we want to be in charge, but then we're also very thoughtful and thinking more about others during this period too, naturally. So that would be, the interesting dynamic that the sun creates in Libra.
And Libra is owned by Venus, and Venus is a moist, wet, damp kind of planet, and the sun is this fire of creative inspiration. So at that level, there's also disharmony as well.
Venus brings that quality of valuing things and getting into the worth of things as well, where the sun doesn't think about that.
Before I was here, I was pre-recording a reading for someone, and I was talking about how the person had an exalted sun and how the sun feels a responsibility and a care to those under its charge. Like a good king, the only purpose of a king, in a way, is to protect the subjects and to make sure that they flourish by the kingdom flourishing. But that is achieved through the inspiration of the king. Where shall we explore? Where shall we invest? All this kind of the creative drive of the king. So that's the way the sun cares. And I was contrasting with the way Venus cares. And Venus cares like a nurse, providing comfort, providing regeneration, nourishment, and a lot of nursing, a lot of taking care of the needs and all of the different needs and perspective of the different people, patients, whatever it is. So that's what I mean about the sun and Venus. They're so doing the same thing in completely opposite ways. They both care about their subjects, patients, charges, whatever people. But Venus does it in a very personalized way and very pragmatic way as well, valuing harmony. And the sun does it by the best leadership possible.
That masculine and feminine approach, the sun being the more masculine approach and Libra being the more feminine approach.
It also strikes me that for Libra Ascendant, the sun is the 11th Lord. So for Libra Ascendants, which is not the sign of Libra, but it's another way to access Libra energy. For Libra Ascendants, the sun is a difficult planet in a way because that bright, confident, look at me, I'm the center of everything, sun energy then goes towards one's aspirations and one's maybe more egoic desires, the 11th house being a karma house and the karma house with the highest number. So can be a bit of a tricky planet for Libra. And I guess the other way around too, for Leo Ascendant, Libra becomes the 3rd house, which can be challenging because of all the courage that we need and all the adventure and all the rubbing up against things and finding out who we are by our interaction with others. So not a lot going for this Sun and Venus exchange. Now, what about other areas in the seasonal workbook that would be good for us to talk about?
So the way that I create it was to help people who maybe have a little bit of astrology knowledge or maybe don't understand Libra as an archetype and the theme. So it's filled with a lot of journaling prompts. I love journaling. And so for me, being able to journal through and set intentions has been helpful for me personally. So the workbook starts with going through setting your intentions and then based on what the themes are, but then diving into the actual themes and then going into the qualities and the core qualities of Libra and then going through Libra through all the houses. And then when we go through that, there's journaling prompts again for each rising sign that you can use to dive a little bit deeper and see based on your intention, is this kind of what is showing up for me during this season? And then once we go through the houses and understand what Libra is activating in each house, then we go into Venus as the planetary ruler and talk about what Venus represents and then more reflection questions. So yeah, there's a lot of reflection questions. And then what I've found helpful is when I'm trying to understand my energetic makeup and when I'm out of balance or when I'm maybe excess or deficient, kind of go into that in the Libra workbook as well. What deficient energy might feel, what having too much excess heart chakra energy might also feel, and then ways to maybe moderate that or find more balance in these areas through either mantras or affirmations or journaling prompts, because these are all things that, and breath work, that I've found super helpful for me personally as I navigate each seasonal shift and try to find more balance with this. So that's a breakdown of what it all does. And then also after understanding the heart chakra, then going into lunar alignment, because the moon is always going to be in the same sign to have a full moon in Libra season and a new moon in Libra season. That's how the cycles work. And that's something that I don't know if a lot of people understand that. And so the idea behind this workbook was to have a workbook that you can use every year that has broad themes, not getting into the details of every single transit, but more kind of overarching themes that you can come back to year after year and maybe find more balance in these seasons.
Fantastic. So it's a practical way for people to connect with Libra energy. It's good to do something seasonal, isn't it? We were talking about this on the most recent previous episode of the podcast, how in our world that is advanced, technologically advanced, we're very comfortable. We have air conditioning, we have electricity for lights in the evening. So it's easy to get out of sync with what's going on in the night sky. And it's even easy to get out of sync with what's going on in the seasons, which is hard to believe, but it's true because we can live this kind of comfort life where through our climate controlled living and having the lights turned on whenever we want, it doesn't matter what time of year it is, we can do whatever we want, whenever we want. Even we can get fruit and everything out of season these days. This is a great practical tool for people to reflect and connect to the season. And it goes so well with what we've been doing on the podcast of taking the opportunity to look at the sun's transit through each sign as a way of connecting with that energy. I'm going to invite everybody to contact Gabby and have a look at this workbook. And what's the best way to contact you?
On Instagram, my handle on Instagram is at SoulfulGabby. It's SoulfulGabby.
Great. At Soulful Gabby. Excellent. All right. So people can pursue that a little further, which I think would be a wonderful thing to do. And for those of us who are listening, let's the two of us attempt to maybe see for each ascendant what the sun's transit through Libra might feel like, or the opportunities that it might provide, keeping in mind that everybody's chart is super unique, and the fact that one planet is spending 30 days in a sign doesn't reveal the whole lot of what's going on in the chart and what all of the transits are doing. But Gabby was saying it can be a prompt to have a little excuse to be like, oh, what does this sun mean here? And what might it mean for me? And so on that level, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into each ascendant. Before we do that, I think the caveat that applies to everyone is that if you are using the sun as your access point into Libra, we might notice that the sun is going to be low in Uchabala. It's going to be in its debilitation or in its fall, for at least for the first part. And that the sun is all about that natural fire of inspiration that we have inside of ourselves, that no matter what happens, we consistently feel inspired in a dharmic way to move forward with our life, to keep building our kingdom. That's what everyone's sun is doing inside each person's self. And this is the time of year when that is naturally at its lowest, that inner reserve. So we're going to go down to each ascendant, but maybe for all ascendants, the main thing to keep in mind is if one's inspiration feels a little low for the next 30 days, maybe some compassion and kindness to the self. That's right on time, right on target. And like all things in the night sky, it's going to keep moving and evolving. So it won't be feeling like this forever. And then to notice also that the host of the sun's exaltation sign, Mars, is also debilitated in Cancer right now. So its own Ucha, which I guess is its inner reserve and wellspring of courage to take action, no matter what unexpected things come along, no matter what lack of resources there are, or how big the challenge is, that inner reservoir of, I can do this and it's going to be all right. I'm going to take the action and keep moving forward. That might also be feeling low at this time. So my main takeaway for Libra month would be to be aware of that and compassionate about that, and not to expect one to feel the same every month of the year, every year of the calendar. So with that in mind, then, as we always do, let's think about Aries Ascendant. So what Lord is the sun then for Aries Ascendant, and what health is Libra, Gabby?
So Libra would be ruling the 7th house. Relationships and partnerships, personal relationships, and maybe for Aries, a time to seek to find more balance and harmony in these areas of life, how we're interacting with other people, whether that be at work or personal, and addressing any imbalances or that may feel resonant during this time.
As you said, 7th house, and the sun is the 5th lord for Aries Ascendant. It's naturally creative, might be connected to our children, to the sense of legacy, and to our intelligence, and even to mantras, the 5th lord of mantras. If any of those things feel low, so if you in this month are feeling low about your creativity or your children or your intellect, and it's not feeling naturally inspiring, then that might be totally normal. Plus the ascendant lord for Aries would also be by transit debilitated at the moment. So some compassion there, and maybe meditation practices around being consistent even when one's creative inspiration feels a bit low. Perhaps we can have those meditation practices to increase our consistency, and know that even making the effort to be consistent can be helpful at this time of year. But at the same time, you were saying about how this workbook came about. Sometimes it's the quiet times where things are happening in the background, even if it's a bit uncomfortable. Maybe this solar month a little bit uncomfortable, but then the 5th lord next month will be in the 8th house of transformation and change. So whatever discomfort comes this month might then come to fruition later in the year. And the other thing to keep in mind is that the sun is exalted in the 1st house. We were saying that one approach would be to be consistent regardless, build up that ucha value of being consistent. But another approach would be to make sure that we take time for the self, even as you were saying, Gabby, taking the opportunity to interact with others and find balance with others. However, we can't do that by losing connection to the self. It has to be authentic, remembering that exaltation point of Aries and our true inspiration.
When you were talking about the lower season, that reminded me of being in a winter season, a lower season of life, and how sometimes when we're in these winter seasons, we feel bad about them. Spring can't come and things can't actually blossom without going through that period of planting the seeds and allowing them to grow. And even though everything's happening underneath the surface and we can't see it, doesn't mean things aren't happening.
And for those of us who live in places where they have those wonderful autumn colors, I used to, where I was born and grew up, we have such a fantastic autumn season of color, but I have not so much here in Lisbon, and maybe you don't where you are right now either. But if you're lucky enough, wherever you are in the world, to live in one of those places where the leaves turn color, it does remind you that the letting go of the leaves, it's very beautiful, for one thing. And the beauty of it is that actually the leaves are releasing their toxins. That's what turns them that kind of crazy color. So isn't it great? It's a very Saturn thing. Get rid of all of your toxins. But of course, because it's the sun, they turn these bright colors. And then the trees become naked. So one could think that is a weakening of the tree or something, but it's a preserving of the inner light of the tree to get through the winter season coming up. And then that inner light is going to burst through in spring. So I guess it's a bit that, isn't it, for us, that as the sun comes into Libra, we can feel that we're becoming naked and we're not at our best, but it's such an important part of the rejuvenation cycle. And Venus rules rejuvenation. There you go. Yeah. All right. All right. So then our next ascendant would be Taurus.
This is going to be transiting the 6th house of health and daily routines, of service to others, finding that inspiration in the daily grind of activities. Could be work-life habits or quality control of your daily life or mental well-being. And then the sun rules the 4th house of feeling comfortable at home. So maybe it's finding ways to create daily routines at your home to find more balance during this season, or dealing with emotional contentment and emotional security at home, maybe tidying up or finding more ways to declutter.
Totally. Excellent. My husband is signed up. He thinks that's a great idea. Yes, totally. I think it's, especially for those of us in the Southern Hemisphere, this would be spring cleaning. If you're Taurus and you're in the Southern Hemisphere, this is maybe the inspiration to spring clean. Of course, the flip side of that is because the sun is in debilitation and what we've already spoken about, one might feel the chores of the home are too much. I'm just not inspired about that at the moment. So a bit of compassion for the self, if that is how you happen to be feeling. Some other things to keep in mind, and because Venus is involved, that it can be related to vehicles as well, and can be related to our relationship with the mother. So any of those things might be stimulated. And I guess if you are feeling low about cleaning the house, then it's okay and do what you can. So attempting to be consistent. And that where would the sun then be exalted for Taurus Ascendant would be in the 12th house. So maybe taking action around our contemplation practices, around our meditation practice, going on retreat. If you're lucky enough, maybe you can get out of doing the house chores by going on retreat somewhere. So that might be a good way to handle the sun being the 4th lord in the 6th house during this transit. So then let's move on to Gemini Ascendant.
So the Gemini Ascendant, the sun would be in the 5th house of creativity or romance, children, self-expression, tapping into, maybe it might feel a little bit more challenging to find that inspiration or that creativity because the sun owns the third house, rising, and in detriment. So maybe lacking this courageous drive to maybe express or create something might feel a little bit challenging.
So if you're working on a big writing project right now as a Gemini Ascendant, yeah, don't worry if that seems to have lost its flagging, it's lost a bit of its drive. That's okay. But yeah, you say it's skills and courage, adventure, it's travel, all those kind of things the sun is looking after. And here in the fifth house, maybe compromising on some of those things being in Libra. So then some compassion that maybe we don't have to be creative all the time, but maybe it's also about doing your daily pages, the sun is such a strong force of consistency, and maybe we can help it along this month by deciding to be consistent anyway. So maybe you want to do your daily pages. And then I guess the sun is exalted for Gemini Ascendant when it's in the 11th, maybe tapping into those social networks and to that recognition. Maybe you won't do so much writing, but you will connect with your readers or something that might be a way to bring some of that solar energy a little bit higher.
Maybe being in community, maybe that would inspire more creativity, or taking a trip with friends, doing adventures with other people might inspire some of that creative inspiration or romantic feelings for a Gemini Ascendant.
Yeah, nice. So then let's talk about Cancer Ascendant.
So Cancer Ascendant would be the fourth house, Libra season. So that's gonna turn the focus to the home and the family and emotional security, focusing on finding harmony or balance in domestic affairs and maybe resolving some family conflicts, or maybe there's going to be more family conflicts that come up, or something within the home that comes up, since the sun is in detriment and the sun rules the second house for a Cancer rising. So maybe it's about feeling valued within your home environment, or maybe something with finances and family in the home.
As you're saying that, it brings me back to something that you were saying before about how do we balance harmony with others with staying true to ourselves. And the sun is the second lord for Cancer Ascendant. So how do we speak up for what we value, but in a harmonious way? Then that's what makes Libra so challenging, is that for the sun in this case, because you can speak up your inspiration and it's me and I'm standing my ground and this is what I know, or you can be harmonious and maybe sacrifice what you're seeing as inspiration with what everybody wants. And maybe either of those is a bit extreme. So Libra is giving us that chance to find a way to speak from the heart about what's important without offending others, without being too blunt to others. Interesting, challenging balance perhaps there. You said it could have to do with earning as well, especially if we work from home, maybe some tension around that, maybe not feeling as inspired around that. So I think this is a chance to align with the heart center and find that solar energy there in the heart center, being authentic. And where would the sun be exalted for Cancer Ascendant?
The 10th house. There's a more focus on career, and it might feel a little bit out of balance. The work-life balance is spending more time in the career, and then maybe that's causing some more detriment in the home life.
Or the opposite way around, that maybe it's great to focus on work and know that, yeah, this might be a little bit of a tougher period in home relationships, and that's okay. And it won't always be that. And getting one's confidence from the workplace and being compassionate that sometimes things are a little bit conflictuous at home. Perhaps, let's see, everybody can tell us all how their month was. For Leo Ascendant, this one we know the sun is the first lord for Leo Ascendant, but what house does Libra rule for Leo Ascendant?
It's going to be the third house. A lot about communication, adventures, hobbies, interests, maybe curiosities, or maybe some trouble communicating with family and neighbors and maybe wanting to explore new hobbies, but not feeling courageous enough to step out of our comfort zone in that way.
Yeah, one might feel a little low in that courage department, but that can be something that when we listen to astrology, it gives us an awareness that's happening. So one can choose either to, okay, I'm going to lay low for this month and that's okay. Or the opposite, that one might decide, yeah, so this is a good time for me to activate that, to do it on purpose and do it with consciousness and awareness that I do want to go on my short-term travels, or I do want to pursue that new interest. Up to Leo, how they want to handle that. But maybe great practice for Leo in building that ucha is connecting with that fire inside the self, that fire of inspiration, and knowing that we can maintain that inner inspiration regardless of the circumstances can go a long way, because it's so important for Leo Ascendant as the first lord to have that sense of being undefeatable, regardless of what comes along. The sun is always shining. It's one of those beautiful things about the weather is that even on the cloudiest day, the sun is still beaming through there. We might not be able to see it, but it's still there. It always rises every day. It's so consistent. So connecting with that. And for Leo Ascendant, where is the sun exalted?
The sun's going to be exalted in the ninth house, beliefs of higher learning. So maybe it could be a good time to focus on those curiosities, on gaining more knowledge and wisdom, learning, higher education, things like that.
That might connect the person to that exalted sun energy. Which brings us now to Virgo, which, as you were saying before, the sun is the 12th lord for Virgo Ascendant. And what house does Libra rule?
Libra is going to rule the second house of finances and self-worth and personal values. So could be a time to be more aware of spending habits or
good
long-term goals, and maybe trying to align those together, our finances with our long-term goals, and see if it's aligning with our values.
And the sun is naturally contemplative for Virgo Ascendant. So maybe that stands Virgo Ascendant in good stead for the sun going into debilitation, is that it is naturally contemplative. So if anybody can intuit the value of this passage through Libra, perhaps it is the Virgo Ascendant. They've got the practice already. Another practice that if one is struggling with the sun being in the second house, it might be nice to draw on Virgo's charitable nature, the sun ruling the 12th. So maybe this is a time of giving in an aware way, as we were talking about, can also be a time of a lot of expenses, only with awareness, but perhaps connecting to charity. And that might be a way to keep the sun's energy going. And where is the sun exalted for Virgo Ascendants?
The 8th house.
The 8th house of transformation. So another moksha. So moksha lord, the 12th lord for Virgo Ascendant, that sun is exalted in the 8th house of transformation. So if the sun is feeling very low with inspiration, then anything that reminds you of the transformative nature of the sun, the alchemy that's possible with the sun, that might lift your inspiration. This brings us to the star attraction. Libra is the first house in this solar transit. So we're talking about the sun going through Libra Ascendant's first house, but what house does the sun rule?
The sun is going to rule the 11th house for Libra Ascendant. Community, desires,
recognition and certificates. If you're waiting for a visa or some kind of documentation, don't be disheartened if this month it seems all is lost and you haven't heard anything about it and it's not being processed. Hang in there, it's coming. But also, this is when the sun, the inspiration that has been in the 12th house for Libra Ascendant, is actually coming now into the first house. So for Libra Ascendant, may actually feel that the inspiration is closer at hand or more online.
Yeah, a time where maybe you're learning more about yourself, more self-awareness and personal growth. for Libra Ascendant.
Maybe a chance for Libra Ascendant to be more consistent and confident, courageous with their inspiration. And maybe that's also grounding that in inner recognition for the self, because this is a Venus sign, this is a Libra Ascendant. That self-worth ideally is coming from inside. And that is what helps us both value ourselves, but also have fair transactions with other people. So Libra is all, like you said, about the scales. But if we don't value ourselves, then we'll do unfair transactions all the time because we're not recognizing our own value. And here we have the sun in the first house. So it's a chance to, inside the self, connect with that self-worth. And then where is the sun exalted for Libra ascendants?
The 7th house. Yeah. Love that idea of recognizing your own worth. I feel that's definitely, again, Libra is always about balance, finding balance in the polarities.
Yep, broken record for Libra. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because Venus, the planet, is transiting in the second house for a Libra ascendant. So that's also about one's intrinsic values. It does seem valuing yourself and therefore valuing others is perhaps the way to go with this transit of the sun through Libra.
Totally. I love it.
So then let's talk about Scorpio ascendant.
So the sun's going to be ruling the 10th house, and then the sun's going to be transiting the 12th house. There's going to be maybe more attention on healing the subconscious mind and maybe hidden aspects of ourselves, maybe coming out through our interactions and at work or in our career, in our professional life, noticing maybe different ways we interact, coming online during this time.
I think it's got so many connections, this one. Scorpio ascendant, the 10th lord, the sun, is in the 12th house. It's a moksha kind of connection, so contemplative, perhaps. It's an internet, maybe doing work, your career online. It's also the 12th house of pilgrimages or hospitals or retreats. I guess it's even the 12th house of taking a sabbatical from work, doing some volunteering, doing charity work, endings, escaping. I don't know. For me, I got a lot of ideas about that. I don't know why there's so many thoughts coming into my mind there. So the sun here is transiting through that 12th house. So maybe some endings in the workplace or feeling low about that. So again, we can tap into our inner reservoir if we've got a meditation practice around connecting to that solar energy, and we're using the breath to increase the glow, the heat, the inspiration of that sun. That will fill up our reservoir to take us through all of these transitions or endings that might be happening for work. So that's how I would see perhaps using a meditation practice as being helpful. If we want to lift up its inspiration from Scorpio's perspective, where is the sun exalted?
Going to be exalted in the 6th house, which is interesting because that's our daily work, our activities, our day-to-day life. So maybe developing a new routine focused on how can I find more harmony in my daily life and committing to, you said, maybe a meditation practice that is going to incorporate that 12th house theme, but then also having that consistency in our daily lives to heal and let go of something.
Sagittarius Ascendant, Libra will be what house for Sagittarius Ascendants?
Going to be the 11th house for a Sagittarius Ascendant. So focused on community and networking and those aspirations and the dreams, and it'd be a good time to contemplate if the people that we're spending time with, it feels aligned with our long-term goals, and how can we find balance, maybe our ambitions.
And the sun would be the 9th lord for Sagittarius Ascendant. So picking up on that theme that you were talking about, our goals and aspirations being purposeful and meaningful as well. It seems to piggyback on what you were saying there. It's also the 9th lord is our luck and fortune. So if we feel a little bit down on our luck this month, down on our luck, down on our gains, again, keep in mind that this is a passing transit. and a time to reflect on that and maybe not to worry too much about it. Feeling lucky anyway, regardless of whatever circumstances, activating that as this is a Sagittarius Ascendant, that Jupiter skill of compassion and appreciation and abundance. And then where would the sun be exalted for Sagittarius Ascendant?
It's going to be exalted in fifth house of creativity and children. So maybe it's a great time to focus on that creativity, to get more clear on purpose, or maybe that will bring more luck into your life by focusing on those creative outlets.
We want to lift up the sun a little bit. Maybe we can turn our attention to creativity or to mantras, that beautiful Gayatri mantra that Gabby and I love so much. And for Capricorn Ascendant,
Libra is going to be the 10th house. So a focus on career, public image, status, achievements. Maybe the sun in detriment in Libra is going to maybe feel a little bit low in career, maybe not inspired in the career at this time. And the sun is ruling the 8th house of transformation or maybe sudden changes. So maybe there could be some changes in how you feel around career at this time for Capricorn, right?
Yep. And even be careful, because even scandals or something unexpected coming up at work, this is where we're going to have the eclipse taking place in this 10th house for Capricorn Ascendant. So watch out, see what's happening there. And with any unexpected changes that happen, the sun might be feeling a bit low because of that natural dip in Ucha and not having that inner feeling of natural flow of confidence. So you might want to boost that yourself by believing in yourself and knowing that we're going to get through this period and all things pass. And then for Capricorn Ascendants, where is the sun with its highest Ucha?
The highest in the 4th house, which if you're focusing on the home and your inner environment. If the career feels draining, maybe it's time to focus on nurturing that inner environment and coming back home to yourself and nurturing yourself more during this time.
Yeah, that might lift up the sun. If we have an inner sanctuary practice, something about our inner peace, and might strengthen the inspiration of the sun because it reminds the sun of where it's at high Ucha. And then Aquarius Ascendant.
So Libra is going to be the 9th house. So focus on higher learning, maybe some travel, maybe reviewing some maybe belief systems or maybe limiting beliefs that may be coming up with the sun in detriment around purpose. And then the sun's going to be ruling the 7th house of relationships and partnerships and energy exchanges.
Yeah, I think this links our partner. If we're Aquarius Ascendant, our partner, the sun, is going through the 9th house. So it links the partner with culture. It links the partner with our parents. So how do we find that balance between our partner or our relationships, our transactions, and our culture? And that pragmatism of Libra wanting to harmonize and make deals. But the sun, that's not its natural approach to life. Is there going to be some friction or some regrets from the partner or from the relationships with our culture and parents? We want to try to remember that inner reservoir of inspiration, seeing the best in our partner and our transactions, even if they're going through a low point right now. We don't want to lose faith in that. And in fact, we want to connect with that inspiration that drew us to that partner or to those exchanges and transactions. And where is the sun exalted for Aquarius Ascendants?
Yeah, it's going to be exalted in the 3rd house. So brings courage to mind when interacting, when doing these transactions or coming back, finding inspiration in your courage and communication, focusing on communication within these dynamics and these transactions as well.
And if it is your partner that's feeling low, maybe taking them on a weekend away, lift their spirits, a bit of a new environment, perhaps might help reconnect them to that more high Ucha experience. for the sun. And then that brings us to Pisces Ascendant. What house is Libra going to rule for Pisces Ascendant?
Pisces is going to be ruling the 8th house. So hidden aspects of life, maybe shared resources, emotional intimacy, the deep things that we don't let everybody see is activated for Pisces rising during this time in Libra. So maybe, focusing on that inner work around our emotions. And the sun rules the 6th house of daily life. So maybe it's coming back to some practices in daily life where you can have time to reflect on emotions and interactions with others and what kind of comes up in those areas of life.
It links the 6th Lord of health with the 8th of transformation, the 8th house, or also of unexpected changes. Could be a time when something comes up with your health for Pisces Ascendant. We do have this is going to be hosting the Eclipse as well. That might be something that is energetically around. And if the sun is feeling low, we might want to have that meditation practice around how can we feel inspired even when things dramatically change. Finding ways to connect with the solar energy inside of ourselves, regardless of transit, and building up that inner fire of feeling auspicious inspiration, even when things are unexpectedly changing. Mm-hmm. And then for Pisces, where is the sun exalted?
In the 2nd house of maybe self-worth or value. So that kind of brings into mind feeling worthy and valuing yourself when these health challenges come up or sudden things are changing, and it's bringing up a lot of maybe emotional unrest, is feeling worthy and valuing yourself.
Maybe speaking or singing, for those of us who love singing, might be a way to lift the spirits. If you do feel low, something unexpected has happened, perhaps some singing can help remind the sun of when it's in exaltation. So Gabby, somehow we've managed to travel around each ascendant there and speak a little bit about the sun. Obviously, it's not comprehensive and we don't know what's in your chart, every person who's listening. So that might have been relevant. It might give you a little hint of some things to reflect on. But of course, another way to activate the power of this Libra season would be to get in touch with Gabby and look at a copy of the Libra seasonal workbook, because it has these reflective questions that will allow you to tailor it to your own life experience rather than the way that Gabby and I are speaking generically about some things that may happen. So that would also be a nice way to follow up this month too.
When you think about Libra season, as we're going through it, it feels a little bit heavy. And I feel that's the reason why the heart chakra is activated during this time, because it's an opportunity to connect with our heart center and as a way to balance out the sun feeling a little bit low, is to keep coming back to the heart and activating it through different ways, whether it's yoga or breath work or mantra.
Yes, that's right. That because we're looking at Libra through the perspective of the sun, we're going to talk, and we did, more about the low feeling that you might have. But of course, that's not the case for every single planet that goes through Libra. And Libra gets activated by a whole lot of different planets over all of the cycles of the orbits. So it had a Venus transit all the way through Libra last month. So if we were doing this podcast about understanding each sign as Venus traveled through it, we'd be having a very different conversation, because Venus works well in Libra. So please do keep in mind that the sun is one of the planets in your chart, and it's important for everybody. And for some signs, it's more important than others. And it may feel Libra is the most challenging. For some people, this seasonal change is the hardest, knowing that we're going, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, you're dipping down now and you're getting shorter and shorter. It can be very hard. But then for other people, especially those of us on the other side of the planet in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the excitement of the sun bursting through in Libra. All of that inner fire that's been waiting all winter is now exploding. So everybody is experiencing it a little bit differently. But this Libra experience in 2024 is a little bit different, because we are going to have a solar eclipse there on the 2nd of October. and that will involve the sun and the moon and Ketu and Mercury, or each of those planets then becomes important. You'll need to have a look at your own chart and what that means for you and what house that is for you. So as we went through, whatever ascendant you are, that is a house that could be impacted by this solar eclipse. If you're a Libra Ascendant, that'll be on your first house, on your body and your personality and your life path. But for all different ascendants, that Libra space is hosting a different house. Go away and look that up. And you can also have a look at, from wherever you live in the world, what sign will be rising when that eclipse takes place, because that is also unique to your set of circumstances. So while it might be affecting each Libra ascendant, something about their body, their place in the world might be completely different. It might be affecting the home, or it might be affecting their workplace. So there's even more to investigate about the solar eclipse and how to personalize it to your chart and to where you live.
New moon for Libra, the way that I would think about it would be harmony in relationships. It could be an improvement of relationships, fostering cooperation, finding balance in our personal and social interactions. These would be how I would think of the themes of a Libra new moon every year.
That space of Libra really important. What does it cost? Maybe we'll be asking ourselves that as the eclipse comes by, whatever house it relates to for us, what is the cost of this, and is it worth it? And am I in harmony with that? So all of those Libra themes. Gabby, it has been lovely to share this episode with you. I want to recommend to everyone that they get in touch with Gabby on Instagram and work with her if you're interested in how to take Vedic astrology and apply it practically to your life in a coaching way. If you want to improve and reflect on your life, Gabby's a great resource to contact. Are you thinking of doing a Scorpio workbook, Gabby?
Yeah, so I want to do, this was the first iteration of the workbook. So this is my first one. It's in draft, but then I want to make the seasonal workbooks for every single season. And I'm sure they'll evolve and shift as I go through the process each time. But yes, there will definitely be a Scorpio workbook. So
great. All right. I can't wait. I hope you'll come back and talk to us all about Scorpio.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I would love that. I had so much fun. Thank you so much for having me. It was so cool to go through all the houses in a different way. And yeah, I loved it. Thank you.
I appreciate it too. And I'm sure all of our listeners did as well. Thanks everyone for being here. And I look forward to seeing you the next time we get together on the Vedic Astrology podcast. Bye for now. Bye everyone.
Bye.